Canada's at a point of serious change and instability in 2025. And as an investor, I think it's really important that we identify a couple key sectors that we're really interested in. It goes without saying that politics is going to be one of the defining themes of 2025. And so as an investor, I wanted to break down a couple of the things that I think are really interesting, and specifically why I think that this year is going to be one of the first really good years for Canadian oil and gas since I started investing. Welcome to Golden Arch Investing. My name is Liam, and on this channel, we love to talk about investing in Canada. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the couple different things that are going to be changing or might likely change for the Canadian oil and gas industry and why I think their future is brighter than it looks right now. Okay, so the first thing that I think is probably going to change is the removal of the threat or the promise maybe of an emissions cap. This is something that the current government in Canada has said that they want to put in place, but as it looks like this current government isn't going to last very long, it doesn't seem likely that it's going to come into effect. And even if it did get passed into law, it's unlikely it'll stay a law long enough to actually impact much. The big deal here would be the removal of the threat. Think about it this way. Imagine you're the underdog, scrappy, Alberta-based probably oil exploration company, right? You're basically a junior miner here. You're trying to potentially look at, oh, maybe there's an opportunity. If the oil industry has a capped limit on how much they can emit, and they're already at that point or above it, and they need to cut emissions, well, why would any of these big companies be interested in purchasing your newly explored wells, or in working with you at all? Why would these little companies have any success? They wouldn't. And so removing this cap means that these companies might continue to exist. Bigger companies might continue making investments. There might actually be some value in making more pipelines. There might actually be some value in, I don't know, improving our export capacity, right? So more terminals for liquefied natural gas, more pipelines going east-west maybe across the country. It's all much more possible if it doesn't have an end date. If it doesn't say, hey, okay, we could invest in this, but by the time it's profitable for us, there's going to be a cap that might get even more strict in the near future, and we'd all fail. So with that off the table, a lot of investment has now been unlocked that might actually be interested in Canadian oil and gas. Speaking of controversial things that have had a big impact on investment into Canadian oil and gas, we have the Impact Assessment Act. Now, I feel like I say this every time I talk about this, but when I do these videos, I'm really just talking about the value for investors. And so all of these different regulations that are probably going to be removed do have benefit to society in some way. And I'm not making a value statement on that. I'm not saying that this was a terrible idea. I'm just saying that from the perspective of the industry, having this Impact Assessment Act removed would be huge. Having that barrier of having both provincial and federal regulations pushing on the same industry, having that gone is going to be really big for expansion and investment into this industry. We haven't really seen investment in oil and gas in the same kinds of large numbers of like actually pushing for new projects since 2014, right? So having that removed is going to spurn a good amount of investing. It's going to push a lot of investors back into this market. I think it'd be actually pretty positive for investors in these companies that already are in those areas, because all of a sudden there's now more interest in joining them, and their assets are going to be worth more, not less. Why do I think this is going away? Well, because the opposition parties have promised it. They have said that they would remove things like the Impact Assessment Act. And they have worked with groups who have been talking about this for a little while. I've actually been reading up a little bit about this, and what I think is probably going to happen, what I hope does happen, is rather than removing this from the books, instead it's modified. Instead, it focuses on the areas that the federal government needs to regulate, where there isn't really a solid provincial framework. And I also think that there should be a unified provincial framework for these regulations. It shouldn't be that you have to jump through the hoops differently in different provinces. I think we should all be on the same page, make things as streamlined as possible so that investment can flow into Canada. Now, I also think it's important, though, that we do things in a way that supports the environment and supports communities. The last thing that an investor like myself, who does own some of these big oil and gas companies, wants is more scandal, more negativity at this industry. We're seeing a switch from a lot of negativity towards this industry to more positivity. And I think we need to hold on to that and continue to try to be as positive as possible. So while we are getting rid of this potential headwind that the Impact Assessment Act has been, and turning it into a tailwind of all of a sudden now unlocking a lot of these projects that weren't able to go through, I think it's still important that these companies think about how they're putting themselves in a good position. Now, there's other regulations that are probably going to go off the books as part of sort of the world of the Impact Assessment Act that talks about how these companies market themselves and advertise their work. And so that might help them a little bit. But I still think it's important at the end of the day, if these companies are doing things that anger the public, the political public, I'll say, it's going to be a problem. And I don't think we want that. So removing this Impact Assessment Act, probably good for these companies, as long as they take the opportunities in a smart way. The third big political impact that's coming in 2025 is the new administration down in the US. Now, for Canada, it's almost an existential threat at this point because of the idea of, oh my God, there's these huge tariffs coming and Canada's economy is doomed. However, our oil and gas industry is massively intertwined with the US refining industry. All these massive refineries that provide so much of America's oil come straight from Canada. And as has been said on the news and in other videos a million times, a lot of these refineries rely on Canadian crude specifically because it's a little bit different, and the refineries there specifically are made to work with Canadian oil. If all of a sudden all of our oil became 25% more expensive, it would be a huge negative impact for the United States. There's also the problem that the shale oil revolution is expected to peak in the not so distant future. I've seen a couple of headlines that have been a little bit alarmist about this, but it's not like there's another massive boom coming in the US. And so Canada, as we sort of unlock our own oil because of different policy rules and sort of unlock expansion here, we can use this as a bargaining chip to help our economy out. We also have the advantage of having so much proven reserve in Canada that even the small amount of it we can currently export at an economically valuable price. So there's a business case really for exporting. There are 100 plus years of runway for us to go. If the shale oil revolution is coming to an end and we have unlocked investment, there's a lot of companies in the United States that might be turning their eye back up here and saying, hey, not right now, but maybe in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, we're going to want to be in that Canadian market. And I think that could be huge going into 2030, into the 2030s, which again, for myself as a longer term investor, that's a reasonable time frame that I should be looking for, that these companies should be able to benefit from this increased interest, I'll say. Maybe not necessarily investment right away. We'll see what happens, but at least increased interest in this Canadian oil. So these three big political question marks make me question a lot what's going to happen, but overall leave me with the opinion that 2025 is going to be huge for Canadian oil and gas. And as an investor who already owns a couple of these companies, who's interested in the sector, who understands its importance for Canada's economy, I'm pretty excited. Now, again, none of this is supposed to be political, and these different regulations obviously impact more than just the companies that are being impacted, right? It impacts communities, it impacts the environment. And so I don't want to say again that this is my indictment of those, of me saying that, oh, these regulations suck. What I am saying, though, however, is they've been holding down the industry, and at the surface level economic perspective, an incoming government that has already argued on changing these rules, that has fought against the current government implementing them, is probably going to spur a strong era of investment into this industry. And as somebody who's already positioned in it, I think that's pretty positive. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We talk about investing in Canada every week here on the channel. And I'm going to drop a pinned comment down below. Please respond. Do you agree? Do you think 2025 is going to be solid for oil? Do you think I have sort of too much tunnel vision on the political change and I need to be thinking a little bit more macro about the world economy? Do you think I need to be expanding my time frame? Do you think I should be worried about 20, 30 years? And do you think that the Canadian oil industry still has a solid business case going that long? Love to hear about it. Pin comment down below. And I hope I see you in the next video.